My daughter left autistic son behind, now that his app's worth $5 million. She's back with a lawyer. I never thought I'd see my daughter again, not after what she did, not after she walked out on her own child and never looked back. But there she was, standing on my porch last Tuesday morning with a lawyer in a $1,000 suit, demanding half of everything my grandson had built with his brilliant, beautiful mind. The irony would be funny if it didn't make me want to scream. Let me back up. My name is Margaret Chen Williams, and I'm 70 years old. I've lived in this same house in suburban Massachusetts for 43 years, raised 2 children here, buried my husband in the cemetery 3 miles down the road, and spent the last 15 years raising my grandson after my daughter decided motherhood was too inconvenient for her lifestyle. But that's not where this story really begins. It begins on a cold February morning 15 years ago when my daughter Vanessa showed up at my door with a 5-year-old boy who wouldn't make eye contact, who rocked back and forth humming the same tune over and over, and who actually screamed, when she tried to hug him goodbye. "I can't do this anymore, Mom," she'd said, mascara running down her cheeks. "I've tried. God knows I've tried. But Ethan needs more than I can give him. He needs professionals. I don't know what he needs, but I can't be it." I remember standing in my doorway that morning, looking at this little boy with his noise-canceling headphones and his death grip on a worn stuffed elephant, and then looking at my daughter, my brilliant, beautiful, selfish daughter, and knowing exactly what was about to happen. "You're not coming back, are you?" I'd asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Vanessa kissed Ethan on the top of his head. He flinched away from her touch, threw her arms around me in a perfume-drenched embrace, and walked away. She got into her boyfriend's BMW, and I watched them drive off toward whatever new adventure awaited her in California. She didn't look back, not even once. That was 15 years ago. 15 years of silence, except for the occasional birthday card with a generic message and no return address. 15 years of therapy appointments, IEP meetings, sleepless nights, and small victories that felt like climbing Everest. 15 years of watching a frightened, overwhelmed little boy slowly transform into an extraordinary young man. And now, she was back. "Mrs. Williams," the lawyer said, extending his hand. He was younger than my daughter, probably in his mid-30s, with slicked-back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Robert Hutchinson. I represent Ms. Vanessa Chen. I believe you know why we're here." I looked past him to my daughter. She was 48 now, still beautiful in that carefully maintained way that costs money. Her hair was different, shorter, blonde, where it used to be dark. She wore designer sunglasses even though it was overcast, and she couldn't quite meet my eyes. "No," I said flatly. "I have no idea why you're here." "Enlighten me." Vanessa flinched at my tone, but the lawyer's smile never wavered. "Perhaps we could discuss this inside," he suggested. "No." I crossed my arms. "We can discuss it right here, or not at all. I have a feeling I don't want you in my house." The lawyer's smile finally faded. He glanced at Vanessa, who gave a small nod. "Very well," he said, pulling a folder from his briefcase. "We're here regarding Ethan Williams Chen and the application software he developed, currently valued at approximately $5 million. As his biological mother and legal guardian—" "Stop right there." My voice was sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. "Vanessa is not Ethan's legal guardian. I am. Have been for 15 years, ever since she abandoned him on my doorstep." "Abandoned is a strong word, Mrs. Williams," the lawyer said smoothly. "Ms. Chen made the difficult decision to place her son in a more suitable environment. She dumped him here and disappeared," I interrupted. "No phone calls, no visits, no child support, nothing. For 15 years. Vanessa finally spoke, her voice small and wavering. "Mom, please, I was young. I was overwhelmed. I did what I thought was best for Ethan." "What was best for Ethan?" I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Or what was best for you? Mrs. Williams, the lawyer interjected, regardless of past circumstances, Ms. Chen never terminated her parental rights. In the eyes of the law, she remains Ethan's legal mother, which means she has a right to participate in decisions regarding his welfare and his assets. I felt cold all over. His assets. The application, the lawyer said. I believe it's called Speak Easy, a communication tool for nonverbal and semi-verbal individuals. It's generated quite a bit of attention in the tech world. My understanding is that TechCore Solutions has made an offer to acquire it for $5 million. $5 million. The number hung in the air between us like a weapon. Get off my property, I said quietly. Mom, Vanessa started. Get off my property. I was shaking now. And if you come back, I'll call the police. The lawyer's expression hardened. Mrs. Williams, I strongly suggest you consult with your own attorney. We'll be in touch. They left, and I stood on my porch watching them go, just as I'd watched Vanessa drive away 15 years before. But this time was different. This time, she looked back. I went inside and found Ethan exactly where I'd left him. In his room, sitting at his desk with his 3 monitors, typing with that focused intensity that always amazed me. His noise-canceling headphones were on, and he was completely absorbed in whatever he was working on. He was 20 now, a tall, lean young man with his father's dark hair and his mother's high cheekbones. He still didn't make much eye contact, still struggled with unexpected changes to his routine, still needed his weighted blanket at night and his specific foods prepared in specific ways. But he was also brilliant, kind, and capable of so much more than his mother had ever bothered to discover. I touched his shoulder gently. I'd learned early on never to startle him, and he pulled off his headphones. "Hi, Grandma," he said, his voice flat and precise. The way it always was. Ethan had taught himself to speak through years of speech therapy and determination, but emotion in his voice was still something he struggled with. I'd learned to read his feelings in other ways, the set of his shoulders, the rhythm of his stimming, the small gestures that most people missed. "Hi, sweetheart, how's the work going?" "Good. I'm optimizing the processing speed for the new update. The current version has a 0.3 second delay between input and output, but I think I can get it down to 0.1 seconds. That would make a significant difference for users who need rapid communication in emergency situations." This was pure Ethan, obsessed with making things better, solving problems, helping people. He'd created Speak Easy 3 years ago when he was 17. What started as a personal project, a better way for him to communicate when he was overwhelmed or nonverbal, had evolved into something extraordinary. The app used AI and natural language processing to help nonverbal people communicate quickly and effectively, with customizable interfaces that adapted to each user's needs. Word had spread through the autism community, then to speech therapists, then to schools and hospitals. Ethan had made it free for individual users, charging only for institutional licenses. Last year, he'd incorporated as a small business with my help. And 3 months ago, TechCore Solutions had approached us with an acquisition offer that I still couldn't quite believe was real. $5 million. For my grandson's brilliant mind and compassionate heart. And now his mother wanted a piece of it. "Ethan," I said carefully, "I need to talk to you about something." He saved his work and swiveled his chair to face me, though his eyes focused somewhere around my left shoulder. That was okay. I knew he was listening. "Your mother was here today." His body went still. After a long moment, he said, "Vanessa?" He never called her mom. Just Vanessa, as if she were a distant relative or an acquaintance. I'd never corrected him. "Yes. She came with a lawyer. They want to claim some of the money from the app sale." Ethan's hand began tapping against his leg, a rapid pattern that I recognized as his processing rhythm. Why? Such a simple question, with such a complicated answer. Because legally, she's still your mother. She never gave up her parental rights, even though she's been gone for 15 years. The lawyer thinks that gives her a claim to your assets. That's illogical, Ethan said, his tapping accelerating. She hasn't contributed to my care, my education, or the development of Speak Easy. She has no rational claim to compensation. I know, honey, but the law doesn't always work on logic. Will she succeed? He asked. I don't know. I hope not, but I think we need to talk to a lawyer of our own. Ethan was quiet for a long time, his hand still tapping. Finally, he said, I remember her, you know, Vanessa. This surprised me. We rarely talked about his early childhood, mostly because Ethan didn't like discussing things that upset him, and those years had been deeply upsetting. You do? Not much. Fragments. She used to cry a lot. She smelled like flowers. She would get angry when I couldn't do things right, when I couldn't look at her face, or when I didn't want to be touched, or when I needed my routine. She thought I was rejecting her, but I wasn't. I just couldn't. My heart broke a little. I know, sweetheart. Is she going to try to take me away? The fear in that question, barely perceptible in his flat tone, but I heard it, made me want to tear Vanessa apart with my bare hands. No, I said firmly. You're 20 years old. You're an adult. Nobody can take you anywhere you don't want to go. But she can take the money. She can try. We're going to fight it. But Ethan, even if the worst happens, even if we lose some of the money, that doesn't change what you've built. Speak Easy has helped thousands of people. That's what matters. He nodded slowly. The money would be useful, though. I want to expand the free tier, add more language options, and I want to help you retire. You should retire. I smiled. I'm already retired, remember? The bookstore closed 5 years ago. You still work part-time at the library. You shouldn't have to. You're 70. You should be able to rest. This was pure Ethan, too. Practical, caring in his own way, always thinking about how to make things better for the people he loved. Let me worry about me, I said. Right now, we need to focus on protecting what you've built. I'm going to call a lawyer tomorrow. Okay. He put his headphones back on, then paused and took them off again. Grandma? Yes? Thank you for not leaving me. The words were matter of fact, delivered in the same tone he used to discuss processing speeds and algorithms. But they hit me like a physical blow. Oh, Ethan, I would never leave you, never. He nodded, accepting this as a simple statement of fact, and went back to his work. I left his room and went downstairs, my hands shaking. I made myself a cup of tea I didn't drink and sat at my kitchen table staring at nothing. 15 years. 15 years of being both grandmother and mother, of learning how to help a traumatized autistic child navigate a world that wasn't built for him. 15 years of advocating with teachers who didn't understand, doctors who wanted to fix him instead of supporting him, strangers who stared and judged and made assumptions. I thought about the early days, when Ethan would have meltdowns that lasted for hours, when the smallest change in routine would send him into a panic. I thought about the first time he'd voluntarily held my hand 3 years after Vanessa left. I thought about the day he'd graduated high school with honors, wearing his noise-canceling headphones under his cap because the ceremony was overwhelming, but determined to participate. I thought about all the milestones Vanessa had missed, all the struggles she'd avoided, all the joy she'd abandoned, and now she wanted the money. I called a lawyer the next morning. Her name was Patricia Morrison, and she'd been recommended by my friend Claire, who'd gone through a messy custody battle with her ex-husband. Patricia was in her 50s, no nonsense, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. "Tell me everything," she said, so I did. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and steepled her fingers. Okay. First, the good news, you have a strong case. You've been Ethan's primary caregiver for 15 years. You have legal guardianship, and Vanessa can't simply walk in and claim a portion of his assets. The app and the money from its sale belong to Ethan, not to her. Relief washed over me. So she can't. However, Patricia interrupted, there are complications. Vanessa never terminated her parental rights, which means she technically still has legal standing as his mother. She could argue that as a minor, when he started developing the app, any intellectual property he created falls under parental rights. It's a stretch, but it's not impossible. He was 17 when he started Speakeasy, I said, still a minor. Yes, but he was under your guardianship, not hers. Did you file for formal guardianship after she left? I nodded. Yes. About 6 months after she dropped him off. She didn't contest it, didn't even respond to the petition. Good. That helps. Do you have documentation of her absence? Proof that she provided no financial support? No contact? I have everything. Birthday cards she sent, maybe 10 over 15 years. No child support, obviously. No phone calls, no visits. I kept records. Excellent. And the business, Speakeasy Solutions, is that incorporated in Ethan's name? Yes, with me as a co-signer for legal purposes since he was a minor when we filed, but it's his company, his intellectual property. Patricia nodded, making notes. Here's what I think will happen. Vanessa's lawyer will try to argue that she's entitled to compensation as Ethan's mother, that she had a right to participate in decisions about his business ventures. We'll counter that she abandoned her parental responsibilities and has no claim to the fruits of his labor that occurred entirely under your care. The judge will likely side with us, but this could get ugly. Vanessa's lawyer, Robert Hutchinson, you said? I know him. He's expensive, which means someone's bankrolling this lawsuit. He doesn't take cases he thinks he'll lose, which means he believes there's an angle here. What kind of angle? That's what worries me. He might try to argue that you exploited Ethan, that you pushed him to develop the app for your own financial gain. It's nonsense, of course, but it could muddy the waters. I felt sick. That's ridiculous. Ethan developed Speakeasy because he wanted to help people like himself. I barely understood what he was doing for the first year. I believe you. But we need to be prepared for them to paint a different picture. They might also try to argue that Ethan isn't capable of making his own decisions, that he needs his mother's involvement. He's autistic, not incompetent, I snapped. I know that, you know that. But unfortunately, some people, including some judges, don't understand the difference. We'll need documentation of Ethan's independence, his decision-making capacity. Has he been evaluated recently? He sees a therapist monthly and a psychiatrist every 3 months. Both can testify to his capabilities. Good. We'll need their statements. We'll also need character witnesses, people who can speak to your relationship with Ethan, his independence, Vanessa's absence. Can you provide those? I thought of our small but solid support system, his former special education teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd fought for him in school, his speech therapist, David, who'd worked with him for 10 years, Claire and her family, who'd welcomed Ethan into their lives without judgment, the other families from the autism support group we'd attended for years. Yes, I said, I can provide those. Then we have a fight on our hands, but it's one we can win. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Mrs. Williams, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to be expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally draining. Are you prepared for that? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. You could settle. Offer Vanessa some amount to make her go away. No. The word came out harder than I intended. She doesn't deserve a penny. More than that, I won't teach Ethan that people can abandon their responsibilities and come back when it's convenient. He deserves better than that. Patricia smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. Good. Then let's fight. The lawsuit was filed 2 weeks later. Vanessa was suing for 50% of the proceeds from the app sale, plus retroactive child support for the years she'd been unable to participate in Ethan's upbringing due to my interference. The claim that I'd interfered with her parenting was so absurd, it would have been funny if the situation weren't so serious. She'd left voluntarily. She'd never tried to come back, never fought for custody or visitation, and now she was claiming I'd kept her away? Patricia had been right about one thing. It got ugly fast. Hutchinson filed motion after motion, each one designed to paint me as a controlling grandmother who'd manipulated a vulnerable, autistic young man for financial gain. They subpoenaed bank records, business documents, medical records. They demanded to interview Ethan, which Patricia fought successfully, arguing that subjecting him to hostile questioning would be harmful given his autism. That last bit backfired on us. Hutchinson used our protective stance to argue that Ethan was, indeed, too vulnerable to make his own decisions, that he needed his mother's involvement to protect him from exploitation. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Through it all, Ethan remained focused on his work. He understood what was happening. I kept him informed, knowing he hated surprises more than he hated conflict, but he processed it differently than I did. Where I was angry and hurt, he was confused by the illogic of it all. "She had 15 years to be involved," he said one evening over dinner. We were having his favorite meal, plain pasta with butter, steamed broccoli, and chicken prepared exactly the way he liked it. She chose not to be involved. Now she wants money that resulted from work she didn't contribute to. The logical outcome should be that her claim is denied. "Should be," I agreed, "but the law doesn't always work on logic." "That's inefficient," he observed. I couldn't help but smile despite everything. "Yes, it is." "What percentage chance do you estimate we have of winning?" This was very Ethan, wanting concrete data, probabilities, facts. I'd learned over the years to be honest with him rather than trying to protect him with comforting lies. "Patricia thinks we have a 70 to 80% chance." He nodded, processing this. "Those are favorable odds, but not certain." "No, not certain. If we lose, I'll still have $2.5 million. "Ethan, this isn't about the money." "It is about the money," he interrupted, which was rare for him. "Not for me, for you. You've spent 15 years caring for me. You've paid for therapy, tutors, special equipment. You gave up your own retirement savings. If I have $5 million, I can pay you back. If I only have half, that becomes more difficult." I reached across the table and took his hand. He tensed slightly. He still didn't love physical contact, but he didn't pull away. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "I didn't do those things expecting to be paid back. I did them because I love you." "I understand that intellectually," he said, "but it's still inefficient for you to have sacrificed so much while Vanessa sacrificed nothing and now receives compensation. The inequity is disturbing." He was right, of course, but I didn't know how to explain that some things mattered more than efficiency or equity. Some things you did simply because they were right. The case dragged on for months. Discovery was a nightmare. Hutchinson's team combed through every aspect of our lives, looking for ammunition. They found very little, because there was nothing to find. I'd kept meticulous records of every expense, every decision, every milestone. My financial records showed a woman who'd lived modestly and spent money carefully on her grandson's needs. There was no evidence of exploitation because there had been none, but they tried other tactics. They brought in an expert who testified that autistic individuals were vulnerable to manipulation and needed parental oversight. Patricia countered with our own experts, Ethan's therapist and psychiatrist, plus a renowned neuropsychologist who specialized in autism, who testified that Ethan was perfectly capable of making his own decisions, that he was, in fact, more logical and deliberate in his decision-making than most neurotypical people. They tried to paint me as isolated, keeping Ethan away from the world. We brought in character witnesses, Mrs. Rodriguez, who testified about the countless hours I'd spent advocating for Ethan in school, David, his speech therapist, who spoke about our commitment to helping Ethan develop independence, Claire and her husband, who talked about the many family gatherings we'd attended, the way Ethan had grown and flourished under my care. And through it all, Vanessa sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, perfectly dressed, perfectly coiffed, playing the role of the concerned mother to perfection. She'd even started crying at one point during testimony about Ethan's early struggles, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue as if she hadn't been the one who'd caused many of those struggles by abandoning him. I wanted to hate her. God knows I tried, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad for the daughter I'd lost, sad for the mother she'd never been, sad for all the years she'd missed with this extraordinary young man. The turning point came in month 4 of litigation. Patricia had filed a motion to have Ethan testify, not in person, which would have been overwhelming for him, but via recorded deposition in a controlled environment. Hutchinson had fought it, probably worried about what Ethan might say, but the judge approved it. We set up in Patricia's conference room with just a few people present: Patricia, the court reporter, a camera operator, and me. Hutchinson and Vanessa watched via video feed from another room, Patricia's idea, to minimize Ethan's stress. Ethan wore his nicest button-down shirt and his noise-canceling headphones, which he took off only when it was time to begin. Patricia had prepared him extensively, walking him through the types of questions he might face. "Please state your name for the record," Patricia began. "Ethan Michael Williams Chen." "And how old are you, Ethan?" 20 years, 4 months, and 17 days. Patricia smiled. "Thank you for that precision. Ethan, I want to ask you some questions about your relationship with your grandmother, Margaret Williams. Can you describe how you came to live with her?" My mother, Vanessa Chen, brought me to my grandmother's house on February 14, 2010. I was 5 years old. My mother said she couldn't care for me anymore and left me with my grandmother. She didn't return. Do you remember that day? Yes, fragments. I remember being confused. I didn't like changes to my routine, and my mother kept trying to hug me, which I found overwhelming. My grandmother was calmer. She didn't try to touch me unless I initiated contact. That was better. Did you want your mother to leave? Ethan paused, considering the question with his usual careful deliberation. I don't think I understood what was happening well enough to want or not want it. I was 5. I struggled with change, but I didn't ask her to stay. Have you had contact with your mother since that day? No direct contact. She sent birthday cards sometimes, 8 cards in 15 years. They had generic messages like, "Happy birthday" or "Thinking of you." No return address, no phone number. Did you want contact with her? Another long pause. When I was younger, yes. I asked my grandmother about her sometimes. I didn't understand why she left. I thought I must have done something wrong, that if I'd been better at eye contact or didn't have meltdowns or could handle hugs, she would have stayed. My therapist helped me understand that her leaving was about her, not about me. I had to bite my lip to keep from crying. I'd known he'd struggled with these feelings, but hearing him articulate them so clearly was heartbreaking. "And as you got older?" Patricia asked gently. "As I got older, I stopped wanting contact. I realized that Vanessa made a choice. She had the option to get help, to learn about autism, to adapt her expectations. She chose not to. She chose to leave. That was her decision, and I've accepted it. I don't feel anger toward her, but I also don't feel a connection. She's biologically my mother, but she hasn't been my parent." "Tell me about your grandmother." For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Ethan's face. My grandmother learned how to help me. When I had meltdowns, she stayed calm and gave me space. When I struggled in school, she fought for accommodations. When other kids were mean about my stimming or my special interests, she told me there was nothing wrong with me, that my brain just worked differently and that was okay. She never tried to make me into someone I wasn't. Has your grandmother ever pressured you regarding your work? The Speak Easy app? No, I developed Speak Easy because I wanted to. She didn't understand the technical aspects initially. Coding isn't her area of expertise, but she supported the project. When I needed help with business aspects, incorporation, licensing, she helped me learn those things. She never pushed me to monetize it. I made that decision. Why did you decide to monetize it? Because I wanted to expand its capabilities, add more features. That requires financial resources, Also, he paused, and I could see him choosing his words carefully. Also, my grandmother has supported me financially for 15 years. She used her retirement savings for my therapy and education. I want her to be able to retire comfortably. The money from Speak Easy can accomplish that. Ethan, do you understand that your mother is suing for 50% of the proceeds from the app sale? Yes. How do you feel about that? Ethan was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was as flat and precise as ever, but something in his posture, the set of his shoulders, the way his hand tapped against his leg, told me he was upset. I find it illogical and inequitable. Vanessa contributed nothing to my development or education. She provided no financial support. She had no involvement in the creation of Speak Easy. She has no rational claim to compensation. The fact that she believes she does indicates either a fundamental misunderstanding of equity or a willingness to exploit biological connection for financial gain. Either way, I oppose her claim. If the court were to grant your mother's claim, what would you do? I would give the money to charity, Ethan said immediately. I wouldn't want her to benefit from my work when she made no effort to benefit from my presence. The app was created to help people. If Vanessa takes half the money, I'll ensure the remaining half goes to organizations that support autistic individuals and their families. People who don't abandon their children when things get difficult. The room was silent. Even Patricia looked stunned. Thank you, Ethan, she finally said. I have no further questions. Hutchinson tried to cross-examine, asking questions through the video feed about Ethan's understanding of family obligations, whether he'd been influenced by my negative portrayal of his mother, whether he truly understood the financial implications of his statements. Ethan answered each question with the same careful logic, never wavering, never emotional, but absolutely clear. Vanessa had made her choice 15 years ago, and he'd made his choice now. The deposition changed everything. Patricia sent it to the judge with a motion for summary judgment. 3 weeks later, we got the ruling. The judge found in our favor on every count. Vanessa's claim was denied. The judge's opinion was scathing, noting that she'd voluntarily absented herself from her son's life for 15 years, providing neither financial nor emotional support, and that her current claim was an opportunistic attempt to benefit from her son's success without having contributed to the circumstances that made that success possible. Furthermore, the judge ordered Vanessa to pay our legal fees, all of them. Patricia estimated that would be about $150,000. It was over. I sat in Patricia's office reading the decision over and over, hardly believing it was real. We won, I said stupidly. Patricia smiled. You won, or rather, Ethan won. That deposition was brilliant. I've never seen such a clear, unequivocal testimony. He destroyed their entire case. Will she appeal? She can try, but she won't succeed. The ruling is solid, and honestly, I doubt Hutchinson will take an appeal. He has to know when he's beaten. I drove home in a daze, clutching a copy of the court order like a talisman. When I pulled into the driveway, I sat in the car for a long moment, just breathing. It was over. Really over. I found Ethan in his room, as always, working on his computer. I knocked on the doorframe, one of the many small adjustments I'd made over the years, and he turned, pulling off his headphones. We won, I said. The judge ruled in our favor. All of it. Vanessa gets nothing. Ethan nodded slowly. That's the logical outcome. The judge also ordered her to pay our legal fees. Also logical. She initiated frivolous litigation. I laughed, suddenly giddy with relief. You know what? You're absolutely right. It is logical. Finally, something in this whole mess makes sense. Ethan stood up and in a gesture that was rare for him, walked over and hugged me. It was brief and slightly awkward, but it was real. Thank you for not giving up, he said. Never, I promised. I will never give up on you. The sale of Speak Easy went through 3 months later. $5 million minus legal fees and taxes, but still more money than I'd ever imagined having in my life. Ethan immediately set up accounts, one for future development of communication technology, one for charitable donations to autism organizations, and one, despite my protests, for me. You don't need to do this, I told him when he showed me the account statement. It had more money in it than I'd earned in 10 years of running my bookstore. It's inefficient for you to work when you don't need to, he said, echoing his earlier argument. You should be able to rest. Also, I calculated the costs you've incurred caring for me. Therapy, medical expenses, educational support, housing, food. This is reimbursement plus interest. Ethan, also, he interrupted. I'd like to fund modifications to the house, better accessibility features, a more advanced security system, and I want to buy you a new car. Yours has 180,000 miles on it, and the check engine light has been on for 4 months. I laughed through tears. When did you become so bossy? I learned from you, he said seriously, which made me laugh even harder. We used some of the money to expand Speakeasy's free features. Ethan hired a small team, carefully selected individuals who understood his communication style and his vision. He worked from home, setting his own hours, creating exactly the kind of life he needed. I did retire from my part-time library job. I spent my days reading, gardening, volunteering at the local autism support center, and enjoying the quiet satisfaction of watching my grandson thrive. Vanessa tried to contact me once more, about 6 months after the court ruling, not through a lawyer this time, just a simple email to an address she must have tracked down somehow. The subject line was, "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Mom, I know you have no reason to read this, let alone believe it, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. I was selfish and scared and completely unprepared for motherhood, especially to a child with special needs. Instead of rising to the challenge, I ran away. I told myself I was doing what was best for Ethan, but really, I was doing what was easiest for me. I've been in therapy for the past year. A lot has come up, things I'm not proud of. I've had to face the fact that I abandoned my son, that I let you carry a burden that should have been mine. The lawsuit was a mistake. I let people convince me that I deserved something I absolutely didn't deserve. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. I'm not asking to be part of Ethan's life. I gave up that right 15 years ago. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry and that I'm grateful. Grateful that Ethan had you when he didn't have me. Grateful that he grew up loved and supported and able to become the person he was meant to be. Grateful that you were the parent I should have been. I hope you're both happy. You deserve that. Vanessa. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went to make tea. I showed the email to Ethan later that evening. He read it carefully, his expression neutral. Do you believe her? I asked. Probably, he said. Her language patterns suggest genuine remorse. Also, she has no strategic reason to contact us now. The lawsuit is over. She has nothing to gain from this communication. Does it change anything? How you feel about her? He thought about this for a long time. No, I accept her apology intellectually, but it doesn't create a connection that doesn't exist. She's a person who made choices that affected my life. I understand those choices better now, but understanding doesn't equal forgiveness or relationship. Do you think I should respond? That's your decision. She's your daughter. Your relationship with her is separate from mine. He was right, of course, but I didn't respond. Maybe that made me petty or unforgiving. Maybe Vanessa really had changed, really did feel genuine remorse. But some damage can't be undone. Some absences leave permanent holes. Maybe someday I'd feel differently. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have that conversation. But not today. Today is Ethan's 21st birthday. We're having a small celebration. Just us, Claire and her family, David and Mrs. Rodriguez, who's retired now but still keeps in touch. Ethan is wearing his party hat, the same one he's worn for his birthday every year since he was 7. It's worn and faded, but he insists on it. Tradition is important to him. We're having his favorite foods, of course. and a chocolate cake from the bakery that makes it exactly the way he likes. Not too sweet, dense texture, no frosting. He's happy. Not in the loud, demonstrative way that neurotypical people often express joy, but in his own way. He's stimming contentedly, making his happy humming sound, engaging in conversation about his current special interest, quantum computing, with David, who actually understands what he's talking about. I watch him and think about that frightened 5-year-old who showed up on my doorstep 15 years ago. I think about all the people who said he'd never be independent, never hold a job, never have a meaningful life. I think about how wrong they were. Ethan catches my eye and nods slightly, his way of acknowledging me. I nod back. Later, after everyone has gone home and Ethan has retreated to his room for some quiet recovery time, I sit on my porch and watch the sunset. My phone buzzes. A text from Patricia. Saw the news about Speakeasy's expansion into schools. You and Ethan should be proud. I smile and text back, we are. Another buzz. This one from Claire. Best party ever. Thanks for including us in the celebration. And then one more, from a number I don't recognize. Happy birthday to Ethan. I hope he's happy. V. I stare at that last one for a long time. Then I delete it. Some doors stay closed, not out of spite or punishment, but simply because some chapters end, and trying to reopen them does more harm than good. Inside, I hear Ethan's music, some complex classical piece he's been obsessed with lately. I hear the clicking of his keyboard as he works on whatever project is currently capturing his attention. I hear the sounds of a life well lived, a challenge well met, a love that never faltered. That's enough. More than enough. Epilogue. 3 years later. Ethan is 23 now, and Speakeasy has expanded beyond anything we imagined. It's used in schools across the country, in hospitals and therapy centers. He's hired a team of 15 people, many of them autistic themselves, and they work together remotely, each person setting their own schedule and working in the environment that suits them best. He's bought a house, his own house, just down the street from mine. We have dinner together 3 times a week, maintaining the routine we both need. He's still my grandson, still the boy I raised, but he's also his own person now, independent and capable and brilliant. Last month, he won an award from a national autism advocacy organization. They wanted him to give a speech at their gala. He declined. Public speaking is overwhelming for him, but he sent a video message instead. I watched it with tears streaming down my face as he explained why he'd created Speakeasy, what it meant to him, how he hoped it would help others like him feel less isolated and more understood. Communication isn't just about words, he said in his precise, flat voice. It's about connection. For a long time, I thought I couldn't connect with people because I couldn't communicate the way they expected. But I was wrong. I can connect. I just needed tools that worked with my brain instead of against it. Speakeasy is that tool. And if it helps even one person feel less alone, less misunderstood, then it's worth everything. The audience gave him a standing ovation, which he couldn't see through the video, but I like to think he felt it somehow. I'm 73 now. My hair is completely white, my joints hurt on cold mornings, and I can't garden the way I used to, but I'm happy. I think about the crossroads we faced 15 years ago when Vanessa left Ethan on my doorstep. I think about how easily I could have failed him, could have been overwhelmed, could have given up, could have let him slip through the cracks the way so many autistic children do. But I didn't. We built a life together, one small victory at a time, and those small victories added up to something extraordinary. Sometimes I still get emails from Vanessa. Once or twice a year, usually around Ethan's birthday or holidays. They're always brief, always apologetic, always expressing hope that we're well. I don't respond, but I don't delete them anymore either. They sit in a folder labeled Maybe Someday, and sometimes I read them and try to remember the daughter I had before she became the woman who walked away. It's complicated. Families are complicated, love is complicated, but some things are simple. I loved a child who needed me, and I didn't walk away. That's not heroic or exceptional. It's just what you do. And in return, I got to witness something miraculous, the unfolding of a beautiful, brilliant mind, the development of a person who sees the world differently and uses that difference to make it better. I got to be Ethan's grandmother. That's worth more than $5 million. That's worth everything. Author's note: this story was inspired by real families who navigate the challenges of autism, who fight for their children in a world that doesn't always understand them, and who never give up even when things seem impossible. To the grandparents raising grandchildren, to the parents who stay when things get hard, to the autistic individuals who teach us new ways of thinking and being, this story is for you. And to those who walk away, may you find your way back to what matters, even if it's too late for some things to be repaired. May you at least find peace with your choices, hard as that peace may be to achieve. But most of all, to the Ethans of the world, keep building, keep creating, keep showing us new possibilities. Your minds work differently. And that's not a flaw, it's a gift. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The end.